Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina, I'm the host, and my guest today is Jacob Belair. Hi, Jacob.
Hi, how
I
are
act-
you?
I'm good. I actually loved meeting you at Rhinebeck. I felt like it was such a perfect place to meet on that hill.
Was it was so overwhelming at Rhinebeck at times. How did you like it?
It's funny because this was my second Rhinebeck.
Okay.
So the first time I was there 2 years ago in 2019, and it felt like very different because I was a brand new knitter back then.
Mhm.
And I also register myself for every class available. So I think I did like 4 classes. So
Okay.
most of my day was, I actually did like a class on Thursday, class on Friday, class on Saturday and Sunday, right? So half of it, I would be in the class, and then you would come out like passing out from hunger, stay in line for an hour for like a falafel sandwich.
Oh,
And then the amount of yarn was just like overwhelming. So like, and I felt at that point I didn't have yarn, much of yarn. So everything looked very tempting. This time it was all about like meeting people
hmm.
and less so about yarn, and there was no classes. All the classes were online. So it was like very different experience, but I actually enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. I this was my first year ever going. So I was kind of in that whole like realm of overwhelmed. Like I was like, oh my God, so much pretty yarn. Wait, people that I know. Wait, is that them? Because everyone was like half wearing mask and half wearing not mask. And then all of a sudden I would be like, wait, I know them. Then wait, I'd be like, wait, hold on, there's a whole bunch of people around them. And so I'm like, it was so fun, but at the same point, I was like so overwhelmed and in my head most of the time. So it was like amazing. But at the same time, I was just like all over the place.
There is a lot to observe. There's like, and so many like beautiful sweaters and beautiful shawls walking around. It was like,
Yeah,
I
I
want
think
to make that.
you had posted like one of your people that follows you was like, it's like a sweater fashion show.
Right.
It was exactly that. And then all of a sudden you get to, like this one lady that I kept on seeing that was had the full knit outfit, like head to toe, pants, shirt, like all of this. I think it's the technique is like marled because it like all kind of
Right.
like blends into each other and just goes down. I still wanted a picture with her, but I kept on seeing her walking around, walking around. I'm like, how do you go up to people and be like, I want your picture with me?
Well, I did just that. So like at some point I was like, oh, like I love that sweater. Let me just go and take a picture, and then maybe I'll find that woman on Instagram and stuff.
Yeah, it was like I honestly I loved the energy there. Like everyone was just so positive and like I don't think there's any real way to describe it that you have like all these people that maybe some of them are introverts, maybe some of them aren't, but like then all of a sudden you just see like little groups of people over to the side knitting things. Like me, I was frantically trying to finish the sweater that I have on right now.
Right.
Like for the whole thing, I didn't finish it in time, but the next day I had it.
Right. So let's go back a little bit.
Yeah.
How did you start? Did you start? You started with crocheting, no?
I did. I was originally crochet. So I dabbled in knitting like when I was maybe eighth and ninth grade, and then I put it down because I was like, I just didn't know how to do anything. And then I went into crochet because I grew up in New Hampshire, and like for whatever reason, maybe it's not normal in other towns, but like it was a ski town, and all of the guys that were in my grade like would crochet hats for themselves because they were all snowboarders and skiers and everything like that. So that was originally what started as like I wanted to be one of them. And then it turned into being kind of a really soothing like mental health outlet for me. So I went dormant knitting until about and crocheting till about maybe 3 years ago.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, I was just like, I need to start this again. It needs to be my thing because I also am with a fiance that does makeup and does all of their things, and that's their hobby. And I was seeing them enjoy themselves with that. So I'm like, I need something that does it for me. Um, and then I started crocheting. I did crocheting for maybe about a year or so. Um, and then I went down to Salem and there was a store called Circle of Stitches. And I went in there and I kind of started seeing all the pretty yarn because then up until then I only used acrylics.
Mhm.
Like I was only in like Michael's and and all those other stores, just getting like the little $4 skein of yarn, not knowing what my tension was, not knowing what there was any difference in gauge. Like I thought like a pattern was literally, oh, this is the pattern, this is how you make it, you don't have to do anything, not realizing that they literally have a little thing there that says gauge swatch.
Right.
So my hats would literally be like a salad bowl, and like, it would like anything I'd make would just be like either teensy tiny or really, really, really big. And then I got into circle stitches, and still I was doing crochet with all the, like the fancier variegated like Malabrigos and Mad Tosh and all those other brands. And then all of a sudden I was just like, you know what, why don't I try knitting again? So without any skill, I decided that I was going to knit a sweater as my first project.
Oh, that's very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've actually kept all of my projects just so that like I firmly believe like everyone sees people on Instagram and you kind of see that that like person that's been doing it for 3 years, and then you have like this incredible lace project or this incredible color work project, or you have incredible all these different skills that like take years to get perfected. But they see that and they're like, oh, I'll never be able to do that. So I always will post like, or I'll show my first sweater and show like my raglan with like really, really, really long little twisties in the middle, and then my whole top, like I was just kind of like, I started doing the I think it's English style, and then I switched to continental style. But when I switched to continental style, because I was going back and forth, I didn't quite know how to purl so well. So my stitches on my purl rows were all twisted.
Right.
So the whole front of it has like one that's like a regular switch stitch, and the other one's a twisted stitch, and it just goes all the way down until I actually got into an in the round, and then I was like knit, 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 and I got this. I'm good.
Right. Well, so when you started knitting, how
Mhm.
did you learn? Like originally, were you using YouTube? Did you take classes?
So originally, my mom knew how to knit, like kind of like basic knowledge of how to knit, and she taught me the first like time of just like knit and purl. When I got further along, my friend Anna taught me, and then also I would go on like YouTube and I'd look up all these YouTube videos, because I feel like for most skills that I was trying to obtain, I could find a tutorial on YouTube. And then like I kind of struggle because I feel like when you have a friend that's good at knitting, like you should pay them for their knowledge and skill base to teach you.
Right.
So that's why I was like, okay, if I can learn it myself, I'm going to do that. But if I can't, I'll go and pay and do a private session.
Right. And I'm so glad you introduced me to Anna. She's like such a wonderful
Oh, she
lady.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like amazing. She's my bestie. We were like all throughout Rhinebeck. We had matching shoes the first day. The second day we ended up going to CVS on the way there. We actually did matching nails the second day. So I had like little spiderweb Halloween nails on the whole day that day.
Right.
So
How is living in Salem influences your knitting?
so I actually designed a shawl, a crochet shawl. I think I have 2 designs on Ravelry.
Right.
Maybe I didn't keep up with the designing, because when I first started crocheting, I wanted to be this crochet influencer throughout everything. And then I kind of was like, maybe let's turn it down a little bit. I still sometimes want to be, but then other times I don't. But Salem is good because it's all historical and it has a lot of different things in it. Like it's a thriving art community, which a lot of people like will kind of go and be like, oh, it's all about the witches and it's all about like the touristy things. But there's art exhibits all throughout Salem you can take pictures of. There's like an urban art gallery, so it's really good for inspiration.
There's
And
also this awesome museum there.
there is
Right.
People Essex.
Yeah, I love
And
that museum.
they've been doing a lot on Iris, I think her name is. Um, and she's like this giant fashion person. Like you'll know who she is because there's literally so many accessories and it's bright and the glasses. But her exhibits, those are also like, it's so much creativity in this one town that you can take so much inspiration from. Like me and my friend will go and like find cool like lines on those like not stainless steel, cast iron or wrought iron
Right.
fences, and we'll like take pictures of that, because like eventually we wanted to design sweater yokes out of those. And like we'll go behind in Salem there's also in Hocus Pocus, they have Allison's house, which is the ropes mansion. But in the back of it, there's a whole giant garden
Mhm.
that I can go to, and I'll take pictures of the flowers, and I'll take pictures of just how like the leaves are kind of going and like different shapes and sizes of everything, so that like eventually when I take my sweater designing class, I can use those for sweater yokes.
So you started designing and crocheting, right? Why did you stop? Like why did you decide it's not for you?
Um, I honestly don't know. I just started, and then I think what happened was that my thoughts shifted to knitting. So I was getting really strong with crocheting, and then I switched to knitting, and I kind of was at ground zero again. So I was like, I can't design knit stuff, so I guess I'll just keep on learning with the knitting stuff, and then eventually get back to designing knit stuff.
So where is crochet in your life now? Like is it completely gone?
It's
Did it get
not
replaced?
every once and again it'll pop up again. It's not completely gone. Um, I still love doing crochet. Like I think a year or so ago, um, I did a design that was like it was a knit crochet fusion kind of piece, but it was for they call it yarn bombing, but
Mhm.
it was in Salem. We have the Samantha Witch statue, and so I ended up yarn bombing the Samantha Witch statue, and then crochet came in handy because I only had a little bit of time to do it, and I'm like, I need to get something pumped out really, really quickly. So I did a whole bunch of the Starburst granny squares, and I did like a whole skirt on her over her skirt, and then I made I forget it's like an Archie pattern for the top of the top, and then somehow miraculously the first needle that I chose for knitting fit the gauge of the crochet. So I did the rest of the thing in a knit, and then just made a whole outfit for her. Like I'll still dabble with crochet, and I really do like the idea of adding both of the skills together and making it into a garment, which I haven't yet mastered hooks to needle size like conversion
Right.
and what it actually gauges out. So hopefully if I start designing again after nursing school, I'll have knit and crochet pieces.
So let's talk about the nursing school for a sec.
Yeah.
You just recently started. It's
I
this.
just started my prereqs. It's taken me about 10 years to go back to school. So I started not like right when quarantine started, um maybe 2 semesters after, so maybe a year after. I started in 20 towards the end of 2021 in the fall semester. But yeah, I'm nerve-wracked as heck about getting into nursing school. But I'm
How do, how is knitting helping or interfering with your
so knitting
studies?
knitting helps. For me, I tend to be a person that gets I read too much into assignments. So I am that person that is up until like 3 a.m. on something that's only worth 10 points because it needs to be perfect. It needs to have the right citations. It needs to have indentations perfectly. I have to read it like 12 times. I have to mark it up. And for me, knitting has always been my comfort, and crocheting has always been my comfort. It's always been like either a mental health outlet or a stress outlet for me. So it helps me to kind of I'll do like 3 hours on studying and then an hour knitting, or and then I'll do another 3 hours on studying and then an hour knitting, just so I can kind of get both in, because people who knit, we know it takes forever to make certain things,
Right.
not including if you have to rip it out because you made a mistake. So it kind of allows an escape, especially if it's like a complicated pattern, you're really focusing on that and you can't really think about the school stuff.
Right. So it gives you like the mental break basically from the stress
Yeah,
of school.
yeah.
So are you as critical of your knitting as you are of your assignments?
I am terrible with how critical I am. Like sometimes I'll allow myself a little bit of a, oh, I'm gonna fudge this and I dropped a stitch, I'm just gonna add another stitch somewhere and we're just gonna keep on going on. But there are other times where I'm like, I'll rip out the whole thing. Like I've done entire sleeves all the way to completion and it wasn't fitting right, and I pulled it all the way out. Like color work, I pulled complete yolks out because there was something that was bugging me about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite technique that you like always going back to in knitting?
I tend to be a fan of brioche and color work. Um, brioche, mainly because brioche will drive me nuts, but it takes my mind away from everything. And just because and also with brioche, like you make a mistake if you don't have a lifeline that you've already weaved in there, you're pulling back quite some bit until you can pick it up to where you have to.
Right.
And color work, I just find it so interesting. Like I just find how the things kind of come together and making a picture so interesting. I
Right.
still am, with exception, I'm only on like 2 different color work. I haven't gone to like 3 or 4 like some people can do, because I can't figure out how to do with the 2 hands. I kind of wrap my yarn around just one hand and separate it with a finger and have both strands on one finger.
I can't figure it out. Like to me, this is more difficult than anything.
No, that makes more sense to me, because I can twist it, I can trap it, I can do all this other stuff with it. It is a lot more, I feel like loading up on your hand is it's a little bit more that way, but I can't get the second one on this hand
It's
to
fine because I need like one hand as a thrower and one hand as a continental.
yeah,
So like picking. So
I'm
to
all
me, this is it.
continental. I have to, because otherwise I'm just sitting there. The only time I've actually done a throwing one is when I would think I was on the sweater that you met me in, the green one some floral sweater. There were points where there was a third color in there, and it was driving me absolutely nuts, but I did have to start throwing on this hand. But it wasn't like throwing while holding it in this hand. It was like I'd let the strand drop, and then I'd try to make sure the tension was matched by just boop, 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 boop,
Right.
in there.
Well, let me ask you this. So brioche and color, like Fair Isle, right? They both sort of difficult techniques.
They
Like you
are.
can knit with like much simpler things, right? Are you attracted to the difficulties in knitting?
I tend to be. I tend to, if it's not going to drive me nuts, I don't want to make it. I mean, I know that that sounds messed up, but at the same point, it's true. Like, if it's not going to somehow drive me absolutely insane, and I'm not going to be like, why did I choose this? Like, for example, with the sweater, I don't know if you heard me there. I was like, I am starting a hate campaign for that fuzzy yarn because I was struggling with it so much. Like, I have a problem with sweaty palms, and this yarn kept on like just like catching on my hands, and it would shred, and I by the time I could make a full like felted piece with the parts of it that were coming off on my hands because they were so sweaty. Like I'm like, oh, I can just make a felted hat now, thanks.
Do you have like, so when you choose the projects, right?
Hmm.
Do you choose them for difficulty level?
I choose them genuinely because I love them. Not for difficulty level. Like if there was just like a straight up and down, just straight up knit piece that was fine, I would pick that if I really liked it. I'm like some people internet shop all the time. I pattern shop all the time. I'll be on my phone with Ravelry. Like I'll be on the commuter rail to Boston, like searching through patterns, going through. And then what I also do, which I don't know if I'm the only one that does it or if I'm alone in this, is that like I'll be on Ravelry, but like if I like a pattern, then I go into investigation mode of how it's knit up by other people to see if I'm gonna knit it up. Because sometimes I feel like that's a thing in Ravelry, is that like when you get these pictures of the patterns, like they're photoed and they're shopped and they're in a nice pose and they're set how the designer wanted it, but then you have to see how other people did it to see if you actually fully like it.
Right.
Or at least
So
that's me.
are you like very disciplined with Ravelry in your notes when you do the designs? Do you put everything like
I'm
all your
terrible with that. Like I have so many projects that like I posted pictures and they're complete objects and they say that they're whips. Like I don't update it. I'll be like, oh, I finished it, post project. Like that's me with pretty much all social media and outlets. I'm like, oh, I'll comment. And then I'll be like, okay, I'm gone.
I'm actually the same. Like I'm absolutely terrible at Ravelry because I use it to buy the patterns.
Yeah.
And unless it's a test knit where like I sort of promise the designer that I'm gonna put the needle size and the yarn I used, like there's minimal amount of notes there. Like I just can't. Like by the time I'm done with the project, I'm done with the project. I'm already like mentally on the next
Do you
project.
like test knitting?
Yeah.
Do you like test knitting?
I love test knitting.
Yeah.
Um and basically like last year, I think I counted I did 12 test knits.
Were they all huge things?
They
Or
were
like
like
little
one of them was like a Shetland lace shawl that I was wearing at Rhinebeck. So I mean, some of it were like smaller, but like majority of them were large projects.
Yeah.
Um, the thing is that what I like about test knitting is that not only I get a glimpse of different design processes and like how designers write their patterns,
Mhm.
it's also sort of puts me in that position where I'm doing projects that I might not have done otherwise.
Yeah.
So like I'm like I'm not a sweater knitter, like it's, but
Yeah.
suddenly like Julie Knits in Paris was like, well, do you want to knit a sweater? And I was like, I love that sweater, but I never knitted the sweater. She's like, okay, here's the pattern, so
Oh,
it's like they have more trust in me than I have
yeah.
in myself. So sometimes,
But that's good though. I feel like sometimes you need those people to push you to do
right.
things you like stretch you outside of that comfortable feeling, especially in your crafts. Like, because if we don't try anything new, we never learn anything new.
Right. Now I feel
Oh,
like I've learned so many techniques from test knitting because
yeah.
like every one would teach some tricks, some like interesting way of doing stuff. Like
Mhm.
it can be like as simple as like some interesting bind off,
Yeah.
or sometimes it can be like something you've never done, period, So
I find like for me when I want to start learning new skills, I'll just purchase a Stephen West pattern for a shawl. Like
no,
because he just
seriously, because
throws
he has
everything.
this.
Yeah,
Yes.
he throws everything into shawls. So like you'll have like brioche in one section, you'll have baubles in another section, you'll have like these crazy parts of yarn overs that you weren't expecting. And then you're just like by the end of it, you've learned so much.
Right.
Like, you're just like
Yeah, I noticed with his design specifically, there is always something that I would learn from each
yeah,
pattern. There's like never a pattern that doesn't teach me something new.
yeah. It's just like they're crazy sometimes. They look crazy, but you still end up loving them at the end just because you put so much work into learning how to do everything.
Well, do you wear all the crazy knits that you need?
Most of the time, I tend to not be afraid of color at all. So I like bright. I will wear everything that I knit, like because I don't knit it unless I want to wear it.
Right.
But yeah, and I'll throw sometimes to the dismay of my fiance, I'll throw things together that probably shouldn't be together at all. But I'm like, I knit it, so it's perfect.
Have you ever been surprised by like putting some colors together that you didn't think would work together and realizing you love it?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. Generally, I mean, I love color, but at the same time, I kind of stayed in my certain palette. And at one point, I was in school for an art type of major, so I kind of knew like the color wheels and everything and what things that I want to be together.
Right.
So I don't think that that's ever truly happened for me yet. But
How do you buy yarn? So you have your best friend working owning the yarn store. How do you stay in control, or do you stay in control of your yarn purchases?
so I try not to buy for more than two projects at a time. Um, I do have like a very small stash section, but I live in a two-bedroom apartment and one of the bedrooms is a makeup studio. So it's kind of like I have like a little section for my yarn, but like I still got to maintain the fact that I can't have yarn everywhere.
Right.
Um, so I buy specifically for certain projects.
Have you ever like walked into the store, seen a skein that you have no idea what you're gonna make with, but had to have it?
I yes, and I have done that. The other thing is that being friends with someone that is a yarn store owner, she'll send me pictures of the stock that's come in of new things, and I'll be like, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that, all of it. So that sometimes does get me into trouble. Sometimes I do end up with a skein or two of things that I'm like, this is just so pretty, I can't let it stay there.
So when you decide on the next project, right? Do you have a queue? Like, are you very organized in like what's coming next? Do you have any plan for like,
Not really. I right now I bought this yarn at Rhinebeck that I was gonna like try to make a whole entire fade set out of for I think it's Free Your Fade from Andrea Mowry.
right?
But then one of my housemates at Ravelry had this cardigan that I always saw, and I had some yarn. I had this two skeins of yarn at home that thankfully where I got it has tons of it. But it is things like that. Like I'll be like, ooh. I like that sweater. I want that one. And then I'll go and research it and I'll pick out the sweaters. Like there's a couple of them that were at Rhinebeck that were like a stained glass type of motif.
Right.
And I've gone and already favorited all of those on Ravelry.
How did COVID affect you?
COVID was rough, um, mentally and everything. Cause like I think for me, I didn't have the quarantine at home experience. I work in healthcare. I work in a Boston health hospital. Like quarantine for me, it was constantly every single day I would go to work, there would be a different change in policy and a different change in how we were supposed to keep ourselves safe. But like at that point, it was an ever growing virus. So we didn't know what was coming from it and what things were going to happen. So there was a time where me and my fiance, the makeup studio, because obviously makeup wasn't happening, I was sleeping in the makeup studio trying to isolate myself just because I didn't know if I was going to be going to work, if I was going to bring it home.
Right.
And my fiance has asthma and like some respiratory issues. So like I didn't know, sorry, I'll start crying. I'm sorry. Um, I didn't know if I was going to bring it home and like
Right.
potentially kill him or bring it to my other family members. And like I was stuck in this position where I love what I did, but I hated where it was putting me.
No, I find that like honestly, I have a lot of friends who were in the healthcare, like some were doctors, some were, like nurses, and that was the most common fear because like they would be coming home, but like at that point there's like so much unknown also, and you don't know how it affects anybody. You don't know how severe, how it transmitted. Like there was like so much
I
unknown that
didn't
it's
know anything. Like I actually, again, so all my knits have a story behind them. It's all with what I was going through. My once in floral sweater was if I get COVID and I have to be home for months on end because I can't get better, at least I'm gonna knit a damn sweater.
right.
And so that was my quarantine project. That was my, if I get stuck in this room and I'm sitting here by myself, can't really be out and socialize with anyone, I'm gonna be knitting this darn sweater.
Right. Um, did you make anything that like really dear to you that you would like never give to anybody that has to stay with you?
I So it's the reason why I won't make shawls for anyone. Um, I made my grandmother a shawl when she was going through lung cancer. So my grandmother and my stepdad had lung cancer and leukemia at the same time. So I have a shawl that's right next to me in my room. It never leaves the bed next to me. I gave it to my grandmother. It was on her when she passed away. And then also with my dad, so that she could have, or he could have my grandmother with him while he was going through the last parts of his life. That's what shawl was on him as well. So that's one that it will never go anywhere. It'll just be next to me all the time. And it's actually crochet, not knit.
Right. Um, so you mentioned that you have like a story behind every knit.
Mhm.
Is that is that what inspires you? Like you think about certain thing and you find the pattern that matches that mood,
I
that story, that
even
situation?
food. I feel like as knitters, our pieces are so much a part of us. Like they go everywhere. Everything has kind of a story. Like we have these project bags and we're knitting in random places, but like we're all these things. Like I have pieces where I've been knitting them while I'm in the hospital visiting family members. I have pieces that like I was traveling up for a vacation, and they all mean so much to me just because they're a part of me. Like they came from within me. They were created with me, and they were my coping mechanism when I couldn't deal anymore. Like I don't know, I find knitting so symbolic of things that are happening in your life too. Like I feel like there's so much with every single project that you make.
Do you have like projects that comfort you, like something that you can put around, like besides that shawl that's on your nightstand? Like is there something that feels like a hug also, like
I
or
my
like
bubble
happy memories, something?
Yeah, my bubble sweater. So
Why?
it was my first one that I ever kind of modified the pattern myself. So there's some things that are a little weird with it. It's a little bit, I didn't know that you needed to block your knits before. Still, this was still in knitting, and no one had told me that apparently, that you can block it while it's dry, but if once you put it in water, it's going to stretch. So it's a little on the bigger side. It's got the thumb holes in it, and I made like a center like little kangaroo pocket in the front of it.
Mhm.
And that thing, until that thing falls apart, that's going to be my go-to. I'm feeling a certain way. I want to just be curling up on my couch. I want to be cozy and comfy. Like that will forever be that sweater.
Is there anything that's like totally not you that you made? Like something that, some pattern that you never envisioned yourself wearing, something like that?
If you end up scrolling through my Instagram, there is a peppermint blanket that's on there that I
I
have all
love
these.
that blanket, by the way. Like I was just looking at it 5 minutes ago.
I have all these pictures of it, but that thing was the bane of my existence forever, because when I initially did the crochet, it was also because I was going to try to make it a business as well and do handmade items for people. Um, so that one, I think I only charged like $150 for it. I was going on and on and on and on and on, and I thought that I could do it so quickly, and it was so not me, like at all. Like I'm just like, it's just not something I would ever think to make. But someone wanted it, so I did it, and then it turned out great for photos. But still to this day, anytime I see a peppermint blanket or anyone says anything peppermint blanket, I just roll my eyes and kind of do like, oh.
In there, done that. Not
They're
doing
done
it
that.
again.
Good luck to you. You might want to get a mental health counselor while you're doing
I
it.
actually heard a knitter asking if there is any way to knit that blanket versus crocheting that blanket. And they were like trying to find a pattern that would be something similar, but like knitting.
Oh wait, that blanket
Yeah.
particularly?
Yeah. Like
I think there's
not even
probably,
like 2 weeks ago, somebody asked me.
I think maybe if you did like intarsia, or even potentially like the double-sided knitting, you could probably do it. It wouldn't be exactly the same. You'd have to do like a gradient color work pattern up it.
Right.
It would take forever and be a lot of yarn and very thick.
So when you said that you were thinking of turning it into a business, why didn't you?
I tried for a while. I think I did like one winter season. What it came into is that like I learned a bunch of things from it. One, if I were to do a business of a homemade business again, I would not do custom orders. That was where I think where my mistake was, is that I did custom orders, and maybe the idea of making the custom orders that people are gonna like, and like also I had no concept of like time and monetary exchange for time. So I would be like, yeah, I'm gonna give you, yeah, you can pay $35 for a full scarf, but a full scarf would take me almost a week, maybe at points 3 weeks.
Right.
So, and it's like consistently doing that. So I found myself kind of getting overwhelmed and not like getting deadlines, and it started making the process of like crocheting not fun. And that was kind of the point of it, was that it was fun. So then I was just like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I'll do fun things.
Right. Does knitting stress you ever?
Only if I can't get a certain stitch pattern. Generally, no. Or gauge swatching. Gauge swatching stresses me out, because I right now I'm doing a gauge swatch for a cardigan, and I've already knit I think 5 swatches. Um, so I am, apparently with my continental, I'm super loose when I knit in continental. So like I think I finally have it, but the gauge for the pattern was like a US 5, and I'm at a US 1.
I notice it as well. Like I'm usually, because I'm also continental knitter, like, and I'm also very loose. So I usually go down at least one size needles, usually two. Like
Yeah, I'm
to
like,
start with, like before I
in
even
general,
swatch, like I already start with smaller needles.
yeah, in general, like I'm not normally like a 5 needle decrease. I'm normally like a 2, but in this particular pattern, it's about a 5. I might be in a 0 for knitting, and I'm really hoping I'm not.
Do you have a favorite size needle, so a favorite type of yarn?
So I tend to really like variegated. I am not, I have lots of textural things. So I do tend to stay away from the rustic yarns a bit. I like a superwash,
Mhm.
or um, sometimes I'll do a one ply sock, but not always. But it does have to be soft. I can't do like the rustic where it's a little bit more, has a little bit more of a gritty texture.
Right.
Yeah,
Um, so when you went to Rhinebeck,
yeah.
what was the most like what memory will you carry with you till next festival?
Oh, all the yarn is one thing. Also, like I have never been in a place where it almost seemed like you were Black Friday shopping for yarn. And like I was like half expecting like 60, 70-year-old grandma like hip checking me and throwing me to the ground if I got in the way of her skein. So like I was just like, whoa. And then I guess also it was cool that like you'd walk around and people would like randomly stop you and be like, I love your sweater. And not even that they loved your sweater, they know the exact pattern it was. And they would like compliment on your color combinations, and they would, that just doesn't happen in real life in my brain. So it was like so cool that it happened there. And then like I was also um just everyone being so nice, like everyone wanting to talk to people, and everyone just like, we're from Massachusetts, honestly. I feel like we're used to people kind of just being like, why are you talking to me? And
Right.
walking away. Like it's just the nature of this city and being in Massachusetts. Like we're nice, but you have to know us first.
Right. You know what was to me like the funnest moment? Like we were standing on that hill and
Yeah,
Cairo came with Jimmy A, who like I knew his face from Instagram, but like I never talked to him.
yeah.
And he was like in some t-shirt, and then I turn around and he puts on the sweater and I'm like, oh my god, this is Julie Needs in Paris. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, this is Julie Needs in Paris. And we had the whole Julie Needs in Paris reunion there.
Oh,
So it was like so cool, you
that
know.
one, was that the one that had like the
It's
almost
like
like the
stained
stained glass?
glass, yeah.
I was
It
obsessed. I was staring at it for quite some time.
right. So it was inspired by La Sagrada Familia in Barcelona.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm dying to knit that sweater. I just never had time for it. And so to see it, and that's in the original, he bought the original kit that was designed for that sweater, and just like so gorgeous.
Do a Fiberchats knit along.
I
Have
know.
it be all with that one sweater.
I know. That would
Be
be
so
brilliant.
fun. You can
Yeah,
have
no,
like all the different
I,
hosts and stuff.
I actually love that sweater because it's like it's endless possibilities. You know, you can do it in
And you
absolutely any color.
could do like a cool like a gradient down, like almost like a sunset gradient down on it.
Right.
You could do all this other fun stuff. I was actually in the search of like a gradient cake while I was there, but I could not find the right one every single time I'd look.
It's fine because like I was sort of this time like I wasn't even looking much at the yarn, like I must say, because like at this point I have so much
Yeah,
yarn that unless something like really jumped at me as something like I've never seen before, it wasn't coming home with me, you know.
I think I literally bought more soap than I bought yarn.
Yeah,
Like
so what about soap? Like why soap?
I don't know what the thing. I keep on smelling every single one of them. Oh, I like this one. I like this one. I like this one. Grab them all. Here, take my money, please.
I know, like I was watching, I was like, huh, like I missed that stall.
I know. Well, it was in that um tent where they have like the liquor sampling and the cheese and like the
Right.
pies and all that other stuff. It was like more towards the back. But yeah, I was all up in that, grabbing every single soap I could find. I got like a body oil, like a really nice hand cream. I was like, ooh, I'm gonna be smelling pretty.
Did you enjoy the first day or the second day at Rhinebeck more?
First day, I think that um I was so on overload when I went the first day. I did like the second day, I think, a little bit better. Only because like there was people, but it wasn't as many people. And it like kind of gave you a little bit of a chance. Like when the first day you would walk in and you'd go through the little exhibit area, then you'd kind of be a little shoulder to shoulder. And then the second day you could kind of walk through and like you could actually go and shop and
Right.
see. But again, this is my first one, but they were trying to limit how many people were going this year. So I don't know next year if all that goes away, we might be shoulder to shoulder both days.
Right, like no, the one that when I went 2 years ago, there was 30,000 people per day there. So it was
Yeah,
like really, and
it was
probably like twice as many vendors as well. So it was like
and I
really
was
packed.
told, my friend was telling me that like the booths were a bit smaller, like the Miss Babs booth would pretty much be an entire wall from.
Right, right. No, and there were like a lot of vendors that usually there that they weren't there, and there were like some empty spots where like 2 years ago there was no
No end.
empty spots at all.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm hoping that next year we go and it's going to be more closer to the normal so that I get the full Rhinebeck experience. But then at the same point, I'm like, maybe not, because maybe I'll be
Well,
like,
did you, I mean, was it like pleasurable enough for you to think like right away, like when you left, you're like, oh my God, like next year I'm definitely coming?
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had so much fun. I think if I could change anything, it would just be my shyness and going up to people. That would be the one thing that I would change from Rhinebeck because there were so many people that I wanted to say hi to and I just couldn't.
Right.
And
Well,
especially like, at the Andrea Maury meetup too. I was like, I just can't do this. This is too much right now.
right.
Also, I had a circular needle in my sleeve and stitch markers in another.
I'm sure she would love that.
It was lovely. And then eventually I had my friend put on the sweater. And then when uh, they were doing like the video of everyone, she put on the sweater and she did a little turnaround for me. So I'm like, oh, thanks. At least it got represented somehow.
Love it. So what are you working on now?
I started a pair of fingerless mittens for Jeremy, just kind of like a quick pick project. And then I'm doing the gauge swatch on a sunflower knits pattern for like a cardigan that the whole back of it's kind of like this cool cabley lace thing. And then it's a reverse stockinette stitch for the front panels and buttons. So I'm trying to challenge myself with the lace aspect of that because it's not one of my strong points. So I'm just gonna keep on trying to push myself on that.
Right. Um, are you like a one project kind of guy, or do you do multiple projects at the same time?
It depends. Sometimes there's more than one project. I'll have like severe project ADHD and I'll have like 3 or 4 of them going at the same time. And then other times it's just one and I'm just trucking away at it.
Do you like prepare for the holidays? Like, do you start knitting socks and gloves for like every member of the
Um,
family?
I haven't yet. I want to. I think there was one year I did blankets for all of my nieces, um, which was fun. I did start quite some time earlier. I was like in the summertime, I was starting these blankets for them.
Right.
Um, but no, I do. I kind of want to make everyone like either a hat or a shawl or something for Christmas one year.
Right. Do you ever need anything silly like that you not necessarily gonna wear in public?
I knit my sister a stuffed penguin for one time. Yeah, well, she is dating someone and their thing is like penguins together. So I made her a little stuffed penguin with a scarf and a hat, and all that other stuff. I think that was maybe one of the things that was off that I would have never done before.
Did you crochet it or knitted it?
I knit it.
Oh, interesting.
It was fun. I mean, I was using scrap yarn that I had around the house, so all the colors were they kind of went, but kind of didn't. But it
Right.
was more of a gag gift. She's just lucky I didn't give her a cat. Because our joke with her is that she's the crazy cat lady because she only has 2 cats, but I keep on calling her the crazy cat lady.
Right.
So I give her cat things all the time.
So do you feel like at some point you'll design something in knitting? Like,
I
do you
do.
see
I,
yourself
I
going
feel like
back
it.
into design?
Yeah, I feel like it's coming. I don't think anytime soon right now, just because maybe over summer break I'll start attempting it. Um, because that'll probably be the only like free time that I have to do that. But I do see it happening. I think that if I were to design things, I would probably focus on sweaters and shawls because those are kind of my favorite things to kind of just pick up. Those are my go-to. Like I'm gonna pick up a project. So
Are you like terrified of grading for the
no,
sweaters? Like, are
no,
you
no.
good at these kind of things?
Um, I have this lovely ability to hyperfixate on things. So I think that because I can do that and I hyperfixate on all these other things and the details of things, I will I will probably do well, hopefully. I just need to get a class or a software at least for the color work that I would want to do.
Right. What was your favorite part when you were designing crocheting? What was your favorite part of the design process?
Hmm. So I think settling on an idea of what you want to design, maybe settling on what things were, and then I think what happens is I've always had like this creative mind of always just like looking at things and picturing them as something else. Like I'll go to an aquarium and I'll see fins and I'll picture it as a dress bottom, like, or I'll go out and I'll see like a part of a painting and that'll really stick out to me. So like going around and like searching for inspiration for things to design, like the shawl, I think I forget the name because it's been 3 years. Derby Street shawl, I think it was, that I had designed. It's actually based off of a window that's on a street. I just like saw the window and I liked how it almost looked like a little webby.
Right.
And then I was trying to think of how I could make there be like points to make it look a little bit like web, so stripes, and then I think it was bobble stitches. And that's what I made my little webby window out of. So I just like I like to go and find random things out there that make me inspired.
Right. I remember one time I'm standing in this parking lot picking up my son from tennis.
Mhm.
And the sunset is this spectacular, like reds and oranges and purples. And the thought that popped into my mind that like that would make a spectacular shawl.
Yeah,
Do you remember ever having like what's the earliest memory of you looking at something around you and thinking I could make it into something?
I was like that when I was like 2 or 3. Like I always was the creative kid. I was always like randomly drawing. I was always the quiet, awkward kid, but I was also always the creative one. I would always just like kind of be in my own little space. Like I'd be drawing things. I'd be making little clothes like for my sister's Barbies. Like that would be our thing. Like when I was like 3 and 4, like I would just constantly be, I wouldn't feel normal if I wasn't creating something.
Right.
So I would crawl at my skin. Like I couldn't sit and just have things around me and not try to make something.
So let's just touch base on your fiance.
Hmm.
So he's a makeup artist,
Yes,
and
he
by the
did.
way, like I wish I had half of his abilities to do what he does with his face.
Me too.
Um, right? Seriously, like he should give the master classes. How about Fiberchats master classes on the
Fiberchats
makeup?
master classes with makeup. So
Yeah,
you're just gonna take this skein of Malabrigo and slap it on some eyeshadow palette and put it
just
on your
match
face.
it. Right.
We're going for the Lady Gaga art pop look.
Right. How does he support or reacts to your knitting?
So supportive. He's posed for a couple things that I've made. Um, he pushes me forward when I was trying to design something. He pushed me forward on doing that. Like he likes to see like kind of the evolution of what I'm making, like and just seeing the different skills. He always kind of pushes me forward. Like so if I'm gonna try to make him something, so we're both a little bit extra, but he's just a little bit more. So if I'm gonna make something like for him anyways, it'll be like a lace shawl, but he's like, but I want you to put beads in it and I want it to be sparkly and I want it to have this and I want you to actually make this sweater, but I want it to be down to my ankles and I want there to be lace work at the bottom and there should be a train and a giant flap up collar. And I'm like, dude, I was just trying to make you a color work sweater so that you could match me.
Right. Does he love wearing things that you make for him?
He does. I made him the Astrius sweater, the one that has like moons and like it goes down into little stars and everything.
Right.
Not quite the other one that has like the centerpiece moons that go like there. That's a goal. But no, he loves wearing them. And then I'll make him hats and scarves and stuff like that. He loves whenever I make him something and
Do
we'll
you
wear it.
feel like because he is like so different, like I know you said you were like trying to teach him how to knit, but it wasn't his thing. Like
No,
do
he I haven't actually fully tried. We started and then I'm like, we both kind of were like me. But I think I want to try again. I think we both kind of want him to try again. So we're gonna maybe work on that.
yeah, that's a good idea. Um Did you learn anything from him? Do you think like he taught you anything?
Um, so when we both kind of got together, our relationship evolved. Like we both had a little bit of a lacking of showing who our true self were when we first got together. Like I was very subdued and I would just kind of go with the flow and do all this other stuff. We've kind of both together taught each other that it's absolutely okay for you to express yourself however you want. And we both will catch ourselves while we're in this, because if we get into our head about like, oh, I can't wear this because someone's going to look at me strange or someone's going to do something like that, it's like you're not wearing it for them, you're wearing it for you. And if you feel confident in it and you feel good with it, then wear it. And quite frankly, screw everyone else who has an opinion on it, because they're not in your skin and they don't have any right to put you down that way.
Do
So
people react negatively to you? Have you ever had negative interactions with people?
um no, I mean, I've gotten stares every once and again, but I mean, it's really hard to understand what a stare is, because a stare could be, I'm ogling what you're wearing, like it was at Rhinebeck, or a stare could be like, ew, like, so you'll get stares every once and again, but other than that, no, not really, not outwardly.
Right. Uh, do you ever feel uncomfortable walking into like yarn store because you're a guy?
Sometimes, like, I think that the field is, it's a woman dominated field, which is fine. Like they should at least have that. But still, I think there's maybe a couple times that I've gone into yarn stores where it's been a little uncomfortable. Like they kind of like, they just see me and they're like, oh, why are you even here? The one that I go to, I never feel that way, but that's just
Right,
because I know them. But I guess there's been a couple that have been like kind of me.
right, right.
Yeah.
Um, Talk about Instagram for a second. Like, what does it do for you?
Instagram's kind of like a creative outlet. It's kind of a, I get to see all these different fun things and different projects. Um, I love cheering on and supporting all my friends on Instagram. Maybe I'm not the best at commenting sometimes. Like I'm like definitely one of those like and go, but no, I mean I love the community of our knitting and crocheting community, and I love the creativity, and I love watching everyone and seeing people's skills evolve and what they're doing with their life and what they're doing with everything.
Right.
So my
Well,
post,
I'm
sorry.
so glad that we got to meet and in real life and not on Instagram and then in real life.
Yeah, it's so good.
Hopefully next year we'll do it again. Like you'll show me your new sweater and maybe I'll need a sweater for the Rhinebeck specifically.
The sweater, and then I show it to you next time.
Right.
Or we can do, I'll do a knit along and everyone can meet up.
We can do that.
Yeah. I feel like the knit alongs kind of push you to go just like a test knit to like
Right.
kind of go quicker.
Right. And it's also like fun to see all different versions of what people are making from the same pattern,
Yeah.
all different color choices and stuff.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much for being my guest today. I really
Having
enjoyed
me.
I enjoyed meeting you at Rhinebeck and I enjoyed talking to you today as well.
I did too. I'm so glad that we did this and that you messaged me and then I messaged you and that we became friends on Instagram
Right. Well,
and
that's the
then friends
best
in
thing
real life.
about Instagram for me.
It is.
Right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.